Strasbourg in 1518, some people started dancing and they didn't stop for weeks. Many danced themselves to death. Others were so exhausted that they collapsed. Was this mass outbreak an act of mass hysteria? Could it have been a form of epilepsy, or was there something more sinister going on? Let's find out the truth in today's episode of Fake Tank Facts. It's me, and this is the 1518 Dancing Plague. July 1518, citizens of Strasbourg began to dance uncontrollably in the streets. Some historians say the dancing plague actually began in Italy in March of 1518, but July is when it hit France and would last until September. The dancing mania began with one woman identified only as Frau Trophäa. She was a 23-year-old peasant woman who lived near the city of Strasbourg. While walking through the village square, she broke into an uncontrollable jig and continued dancing without stopping for 5 days and nights. Soon after, more people started dancing. Entire families became afflicted and whole villages were dancing. At first, the dancing seemed to be a sign of great joy. People laughed and drank and partied. But soon they grew tired and many fell down from exhaustion only to get up and continue dancing. Others suffered terrible pain and convulsions, and over 4,000 people died during the dancing plague. So what caused these people to dance their lives away? One of the leading theories is mass hysteria. This is also known as mass psychogenic illness or a mass sociogenic disorder. These terms describe a situation where the symptoms of a disease are shared by a group of people. Those affected experience physical symptoms, psychological distress, or both. In most cases, there is no pathogen or other physical cause that can explain the outbreak. Instead, the illness spreads from person to person like an infection. So could this have been the cause of the dancing plague? If this had been the case, we would expect the symptoms to match those of other outbreaks of mass hysteria. But the symptoms of the dancing plague were quite unique. Another theory is that the people of Strasbourg were suffering from a form of epilepsy. This could have been caused by a fungus called ergot. Ergot grows on rye and other grains and contains a powerful hallucinogen called lysergic acid. If someone ate bread made from ergot-infected grain, they could have experienced convulsions and uncontrollable dancing, but this doesn't explain why so many people were affected at the same time. Plus, there were no other symptoms of poisoning. Some experts believe the dancing plague was a combination of mass hysteria and ergot poisoning, but there are other ideas as well. The timing of the dancing plague, which took place during a hot summer, has led some to suggest that it was really a reaction to the heat. Perhaps people were overcome with a kind of sun madness. Others have suggested a link to St. Vitus's dance, otherwise known as chorea. This is a neurological disorder marked by involuntary muscle movements and uncontrollable writhing. But again, this doesn't explain why so many people were affected at once. And then there's the idea that this wasn't a disease at all, but a punishment from God. The people of Strasbourg had recently erected a statue of a naked woman in a public square. This was considered an act of paganism, and the dancing plague was God's way of punishing them. Or maybe it was a curse cast by an enemy of the town. The people were dancing off the curse of the witches. A few years earlier, the town had executed several women for witchcraft. Perhaps a witch had put a curse on the entire town. So why do outbreaks like this still happen today? Well, according to researchers, the underlying causes are varied and complex. They include social, economic, cultural, psychological, and biological factors. Most outbreaks occur in developing countries where people have limited access to health care. When a disease begins to spread, misinformation and fear can cause people to panic. They may begin to believe that the sick are cursed or possessed by demons. This belief can cause even more sickness. People may cut themselves or others in order to drive out the demon. In some cases, they eat the remains of the dead in the belief that this will prevent the demon from possessing them as well. The more people who take part in these rituals, the wider the spread of the disease. But how do these outbreaks end? Eventually, the supply of victims runs out. After that, the epidemic subsides. So what about the people of Strasbourg? How did the dancing plague end? As the summer wore on, the dancing plague began to affect more and more people. By the end of August, almost everyone in the city had been infected. Because so many people were sick, they couldn't keep working. Food began to spoil and rot because no one was around to harvest it. The people of Strasbourg began to starve. On September, a man named John wrote a letter to the bishop pleading for help. He wrote, "For nearly 4 weeks now, this evil has been growing steadily worse. What we have endured and seen throughout this affliction, if one were to write it down, would seem unbelievable. Even today, hundreds of men, women, and children are unable to leave their homes because of the uncontrollable fits that assail them. Others, men and women, sometimes fall down in the street, dance frenziedly, whirl and leap about, distort and contort their bodies." Because of the starvation and destruction of crops, the bishop was able to declare a holiday and free the peasants of their obligations. This worked for a while, but the dancing continued unabated. Finally, on September, a procession of monks and church officials paraded through the streets. They carried a banner depicting Christ healing the possessed. It seems to have worked. One by one, the dancers stopped dancing. Many were weak and had to be carried home, but they were cured. In the aftermath of the dancing plague, 3 questions remained. How did the plague begin? Why did it end? And why did it suddenly start up again? 2 months later, a similar outbreak occurred in Cologne. Then another one struck in Aachen. These outbreaks were similar to the one in Strasbourg, but they were different. The victims didn't dance, they convulsed and writhed. The outbreaks lasted longer, and more people died. This leads us back to our original question. Was this a disease at all? Looking back, we now know the answer is yes and no. The dancing plague was not caused by a single pathogen, but it was very real. Victims suffered from uncontrollable seizures, and some did dance. The outbreaks of convulsions were likely caused by ergot poisoning. Those who danced were probably suffering from a form of mass hysteria. Mass hysteria was first described by the Greeks. They believed the source of such ailments was a wandering uterus, or what they called a phrenesis. In Latin, phrenesis means mind, frenzy, insanity, and passion. This is the origin of our word hysteria. According to the Greeks, the wandering womb caused women to become hysterical. Today, hysteria is considered an outdated term. Experts prefer the phrase conversion disorder. This is a condition in which mental distress is expressed in physical ways. Sometimes people don't even realize they're doing it. They may laugh uncontrollably, cry, or even faint. We don't know exactly what caused the dancing plague of 1518, but what we do know is that this wasn't the first or last time that it happened. In the 17th century, outbreaks of dancing mania swept across Europe. These are now known as the dancing epidemics. Victims would dance non-stop for weeks. The dancing plague of 1674 affected between 300 and 600 people in several German towns. The dancing mania subsided in the 18th century but returned in the 20th. Between 1917 and 1918, thousands of people in southern Russia were stricken with dancing sickness. During the Soviet era, the government tried to cover up these outbreaks, but one researcher managed to smuggle some recordings out of the country. Recently, a team of scientists analyzed the audio clips. They found that the victims were suffering from auditory hallucinations. This could have triggered their uncontrollable dancing. The dancing plagues and other outbreaks of mass hysteria show how contagious the human mind can be. But they also show how little we understand the human brain. The diseases we talked about today are very rare. You probably won't get ergot poisoning anytime soon, and it's unlikely you'll be struck by a sudden fit of dancing. But if you see someone dancing uncontrollably in the street, don't just stand by and watch. Do something to help them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out one of our new videos right here.